again, in Winnipeg, I do say that there has not been, in terms of the public displays, nothing that caused any alarm for Jews or for Israelis. That I can say. However, when the Day of Rage events started across North America and in this country as protests against the state of Israel applying sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, otherwise known as annexation of occupied territories. And we see it historically different because these are the Jewish homelands. Judea had the capital of Israel. So this isn't us like wandering into the Sinai desert just to snatch up, tracts of land that had nothing to do with our history, our culture, and our self-governance. Now the protests started across the country, and it started in Vancouver with I think it was about 100 people in Vancouver. They lined a city block around Clark and East Broadway, and the lead sign was "Canada is guilty in Palestinian genocide and Nakba."
Hang on for a second. This is a genocide where there are more Palestinians now than ever before. So, I mean, that's generally not how a genocide works out. And these people are protesting. These are people who, by and large, have no ties to Israel or the Palestinian-controlled territories. These are
maybe in Vancouver, maybe half, but then you're dealing with university students, old-time Jew-hating leftists,
right?
But not a lot of them have any direct relationship to the Palestinian administration.
And these are people who are protesting an American, so a Trump-proposed peace plan.
Yes.
In Israel, that the Palestinian leadership immediately rejected, because for the Palestinian leadership, any Jews left in the land between, I guess, the river and the sea, that's unacceptable here.
Correct. But not rejected by the Palestinian communities that would welcome, in many cases, Israeli administrative legislative law as opposed to Israeli military rule, to have it converted to a more normal kind of administration. And they'd rather live in Israel, where, among other things, gays aren't pitched off the top of a building, than live under the Palestinian Authority and under the thumb of terrorist groups. And
and the opportunity for regular elections.
An election every 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to be clear, I've seen what they call settlements. Settlements is a strange way to describe a neighborhood. That's really what these are. These are Jewish neighborhoods, by and large Jewish neighborhoods. They don't say that you can't live there unless you're Jewish. I mean, there's Christian Arabs there. I mean, these are just neighborhoods. They're denormalized, I think, by the United Nations by calling them settlements, which indicates something other than what they are. But this is the United Nations and the rest of the world saying that Jews cannot build homes in certain places, which sounds like anti-Semitism to me.
The first thing is that anytime somebody pulls out this idea that this is violates the UN law and blah blah blah, and they start talking about borders, these were never borders. This was This was an end of hostilities in a war. Borders were never established. Number two, many of these communities, 500,000 Jews, not all of them are settlers. Some of these communities where there's 500,000 Jews, this is where Jews have always lived, in some respects, or lands that were traditionally Jewish where Arab descendants never lived. So when people start by talking about the laws being broken, point out the law and how this area actually fits the definitions of that law. Not quite so simple. So beyond genocide, that what you just talked about in reference to this lead sign in Vancouver, the other part is Nakba, which is the notion that land was stolen, taken from Arab interests, from Palestinians, except for the ones that fled under instruction of the Arab governments who intended to wipe out every Jew. People forget 6,000 Jews were killed at the beginning of the 1948 war. That was 1% of the population. Figure out what would happen to any country where 1% is killed in a war. This discounts the land that Jews bought, Zionists bought, especially in the 1930s under the British Mandate, with way overpaying per acre compared to what a land costs in, say, New York State. Um, how do you say that land was stolen when it was paid for at above market rates?
Right.
Among the signs, so you'll have these signs about genocide and Nakba beside a sign where people are caring about no to annexation, which goes back to the political argument. And then in Vancouver, there was a sign, Palestine will be free, held banner, carried by Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP. And when you look at the picture that we published on the J.ca, one of the girls is wearing a white T-shirt with an insignia on it. There's two shots of her, and when you look at it, you come to recognize that the T-shirt is the logo of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. That is a banned terrorist group in this country. Meanwhile, one of the event sponsors was Samidun, which is an organization that references Palestinian prisoner. It's the Palestinian Prisoner Solidarity Network. So you're looking at prisoners who are part of a terrorist group. I'm sure that the majority are not in Israeli jails. If they are in jails for jaywalking, it's terror-related activities they're being jailed for. Yeah. Not this isn't the maintenance enforcement branch because they haven't been paying for the kids or something. And here's Charlotte Cates, who's the international coordinator of Samidun, holding a sign saying no to annexation, no to Zionism. So you've got an affiliate of a banned terrorist group participating in this rally saying no to Zionism when we know that Zionism is the belief in the right to historic homeland that is held by 97% of Jews. But she would argue that somehow she's not an anti-Semite.
That's an excerpt from my weekly Wednesday night show, The Gunn Show. Now, normally the full show is sitting behind a paywall, but we thought you'd like this clip. Now, on my show, I talk to interesting newsmakers, thinkers, and doers that are normally ignored, maligned, or completely attacked by the mainstream media. If you'd like to get access to my show, as well as other great TV-style shows too, like Ezra's Nightly, Ezra Levant Show, and David Menzies' Friday night show, Rebel Roundup, just go to rebelnews.com/subscribe. That's rebelnews.com/subscribe.